Hello, and welcome to a very special Songs from the Upper Room. It isn't numbered like the others because it is a very special one. Sadly, it's not special in terms of a happy occasion. Instead, it is a very sombre and very unhappy occasion. For the benefit of those who don't already know, 2 weeks ago from the day today that I posted this particular presentation, Saturday the 22nd of March, Stephen, who you've seen, has co-presented the songs with me, has given us preambles and testimonies, has given us readings, sadly passed away. He passed away quietly in his sleep. He was only 45. We don't know yet the actual cause of death. We're waiting to find out. But speculation has it that it was to do with a condition called cellulitis, which can easily lead to sepsis, which in turn can be fatal, as we've found out. At the end of Pastor Steve Taylor's first sermon at Wood Bank, never having met our Stephen before, him never having really met me, he's just seen me up at the front playing a guitar, Pastor Steve picked us both out, somehow knowing that we both had problems with anxiety. We were called to the front for the laying on of hands and to be prayed over. It was a touching and moving moment, and it was the start of what became a very close and loving friendship, but not romantic, you understand. After years of us both being judged, ostracised, criticised, chastised by others because we had differences, we had a mutual understanding where there was no judgment, ostracising or criticism. Stephen had many ailments, both physically and mentally. He struggled with a debilitating social anxiety and paranoia, holding him prisoner, terrified to go out and face the world and everyday life. So he kept himself confined to barracks, so to speak. He struggled all his life with asthma, and to add to the cocktail, COPD, repeated debilitating chest infections that caused him immense breathing difficulties. He found it difficult even to go upstairs or to walk to the local shop, favouring instead to be driven a few hundred yards. On top of that, Stephen suffered with an addictive personality. Caught up in the world of drugs and crime and deception. In short, the dark world of sin in its most abrasive form. Having fought a sinister drug addiction, it was evident that Stephen desperately wanted to leave the dark side and come over the line and into the love of Jesus and lead a clean and decent life. But it wasn't going to be an easy transition. I bear witness to how hard he fought. So hard to achieve that, once and for all, break free from the grip of the enemy. But the grip was just so powerful, so strong, it was a very hard fight. He successfully managed to give up his drug habit, and with therapy and with medication was able to sustain a reasonable life. But gradually things got difficult for him with all the brain injury from an overdose following a relapse, and mental health issues. But he soon started substituting his old habit with alcohol, and that again was in itself a big uphill struggle. So I believe the Lord placed me in his life and I in his to help him achieve that and come out of this terrible addictive personality. When talking about addiction, what I say to people who don't know much about it is please don't judge. Addiction in its many forms, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs or gambling or those kind of things, they don't do it because they're just overindulgent. They don't do it because they're lazy or anything like that. It is an illness like any other, but it's the most stigmatized and the most judged illness, judged often by people who have no knowledge of it whatsoever. After a spell in hospital, Stephen wasn't coping well. He wasn't coping with living independently, and I went down to his flat to get something for him while he was in hospital, and I found it evident myself. Things that were lying around that shouldn't have been. So I gathered up his washing and brought that back here and did it, and cleaned up his flat a little for him. But when he came out of hospital, I insisted that he came back here with me. That was in the autumn last year, and he lived here with me for the final months of his life. So we agreed that we were two very lonely people, sitting staring at the opposite wall on our own most of the time, so we could be company for one another. Another heartbeat under the same roof. Let's go and stare at the opposite wall together. We grew closer. We became firm friends, laughing and joking together, being silly, sometimes arguing, always reconciling afterwards. Or we could have some terrible habits, and he could be very exasperating at times. But do you know what? I'd pay any price like right now to have that back, rather than the quietness, the emptiness that I feel now in this house. We'd share with one another where we were spiritually, and we'd often pray together. We'd comfort one another in times of distress and share life's experiences. I, as many know, have a boat in Troon. I took him up to the boat and gave him a brand new positive experience. He met with a friend I have up there, Jamie, and who turns out to be a very good sailing instructor, and another person who, Stephen said, accepted you, didn't judge. Take a look at this.
Just little changes, doesn't need to be anything big. Just
No, I find I'm wrestling with it, but it's not. It's
just little, because the bigger change you make, then the more bigger changes you've got to make, because you're like bouncing a ball backwards and forwards, whereas what you want to do is stop the ball bouncing.
It's better today. There's a bit more wind. It's more responsive. It's the boat's moving.
It's like you're really driving now. You know, like a car.
Closest you want to go to there because of the shallow water drop.
Yeah.
No, it's back to where you were going. Keep going where you were going. You were on a good line before.
There.
To the right. No, to the right.
The engine won't rev any slow, will it?
No.
It's in neutral anyway.
Oh yeah, the engine might be on. It's only because of that dodgy starter button.
Yeah.
It's in neutral. We're not motoring.
Yeah.
And your skipper for today is Steve, who's concentrating on where he's going. Oh no, he's there.
But I've learnt more in this than the last time I was on it.
Well, it's getting a chance to play. It's getting a feel for it.
Yeah, you know, this has got to be. I mean, I just didn't realise that there was a world like this, that there was a life like this, just being, and it's just being fetched up on a council estate, stealing for a bag of smack or something. There's this. It's beautiful, and I really mean it. It does glorify God in such a way that it's just, there's a life.
The fateful morning, the 22nd of March of this year, 2 weeks ago from posting this video. I was due to go up to Troon just to move the boat onto another mooring. It was a pain because it's a 3-hour drive there and a 3-hour drive back. Stephen said he would stay back here and look after the dogs, his dog and my dog, Jess. Upon getting up that morning, I knocked on his door, went into his room to give him a shout, so that I was setting off. I noticed his arm was hanging over a partition that I'd screwed to the side of the bed because he was always falling out of bed and hurting himself. So it was to stop him falling out. His arm was hooked over it, and it was the most horrendous colour I've ever seen. My first thoughts were he's cut off the circulation, having his arm leaning over like that. So I tried to rouse him and say, get some circulation back in your arm, it'll feel like a big piece of dead meat. I got no response. I rolled him over and shook him by the shoulders quite vigorously. Still no response. Immediately I realised that something serious was going on. So I called 999, called the emergency services immediately. And then I checked. There was no pulse, no breathing. So I began to give CPR. I couldn't get his mouth open. I couldn't get his jaw apart to give mouth to mouth. So I carried on with the CPR under the advice of the person that I was calling on the emergency line, and waited for the ambulance to arrive. They arrived all well within 10 minutes, but it seemed like hours. When they arrived, I've noticed a little bit of warmth between his body and the duvet. Clutching at straws, I thought, they'll be able to revive him. They know what they're doing. And they sent me out of the room. Immediately I grabbed the phone again with that opportunity to ring Christopher, his brother, straight away to say that something serious was happening. At that point, one of the ambulance crew, the ambulance staff, came down the stairs, and I said, I'll hand you over to the ambulance person because they will know more what they're talking about than I do. Well, that was when Christopher received the news over the phone, and it wasn't sugar-coated. Naturally, I was in the room as well, so I received the news at the same time that it was too late and he was already gone. Probably the most traumatic time of my life. Something I will never forget, that will stay in my mind for the rest of my life, however long that may be. I still get flashbacks now, not daily but hourly. I think it will haunt me for a very long time. That on top of the usual sense of great loss and the grief that I feel. I immediately called our pastor Barry upon learning this tragic and terrible news. And Barry certainly came. He wasn't allowed in at first because the police have to do their thing with sudden deaths, because this was sudden, bolt out of the blue. No seeming rhyme nor reason. Barry was the most welcome sight I'd seen. I could see that day that I couldn't have wanted for a better person. Despite his busy schedule, he very generously and graciously spent the day with me, for which I'm grateful. He also fixed it so that I could spend 2 nights in a nearby hotel, so I didn't have the eerie quiet of this house, knowing what had just been happening. It worked as well. It was good to have that change of scene. And I spent the evening talking on FaceTime with people I regard as brothers, although they're not actual brothers. I have no siblings, but they're people I've known all my life. Since we were children, we grew up together. And they're the nearest thing to brothers I've got. But my heart went out to Stephen's brother, because just recently they buried their mother. She died not a month before Stephen did. And we'd just gone through the funeral and everything else, and then this happened suddenly, bolt out of the blue. Staying in the hotel on the Sunday morning, I prayed. I prayed to the Lord. But I didn't pray the usual polite prayer. I was angry. I was angry with him. I said, Lord, Stephen once tried to kill himself. He put a dog lead round his neck and went to drop off a branch of a tree with it round his neck. And suddenly, bolt out of the blue, came a stranger from nowhere who caught him just at the right time and escorted him back home. By the time he got back home, he began to have second thoughts, and he turned to thank the stranger, and he'd gone. Looked up the street, down the street, not to be seen. We believe that was an angel. And then when he had that relapse, was found unconscious in the street, and there was little sign of light, blue lights flashing everywhere. They were about to say death pronounced at whatever time it was, when a doctor said there's a murmur of life. He found the tiny murmur of life, so they rushed him to intensive care, where he spent months in a coma. And then he heard your voice. He heard your voice, very loud, very clear, very commanding, very authoritative, yet deeply loving. Rise, mighty warrior. Come to know your God. I breathe life into you and plant your feet in David's city. And Stephen was again saved. So, Jesus, why? Why? This doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. The poor man and his brother have just buried their mother, and you've taken him. Why? What do you think you're doing? I was cross. At that precise moment, Jesus placed on my heart one verse from Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. Come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest. Stephen fought a long, hard battle. He fought a long, hard battle against the grip of the enemy, continuously trying to stop him crossing that line into righteousness, continuously trying to pull him back. He fought and fought, but Stephen became battle weary, and he fell. He fell in battle. He clearly turned to the Lord, and just as Jesus said, he gave him rest. We like to think that he's joined his beloved mother, for he and his mother were very close, and Stephen was grieving very heavily for his mother recently passed. I would implore you at this point to pray for his brother Christopher, who obviously has lost his mother too, and has now lost his younger brother. What he must be going through and the loss he must be feeling will be far greater than that I feel. Stephen was a kind, compassionate, tactile and loving person. Even in the depths of despair and depression, even when he'd had far too much to drink, he wasn't abusive or aggressive or nasty. I failed to find a single nasty bone in that man's body. He was torn between a world of darkness and desperate to come into a better way of life, free from addictions, phobias and physical illness. Battle-weary and weakened, this brave soldier, who had put up such a great fight, in the end it proved too much. Yes, he fell in battle. I take comfort in knowing that our fallen comrade may now rest in the tender, loving arms of Jesus. His battle over, his struggles now at an end. For his mother's funeral, Stephen asked for a song to be played, which it was, a song by Matt Redman called One Day When We All Get to Heaven. He also asked me to do an upper room version of it, which I have done and you will hear shortly. Let's just have a look at the words. It's so appropriate. One day you'll make everything new, Jesus. One day you'll bind every wound. The former things shall all pass away. No more tears. One day you'll make sense of it all, Jesus. One day every question resolved, and I certainly had one, didn't I? Every anxious thought left behind. No more fear when we all get to heaven. What a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. One day we'll see face to face. Is there a greater vision of grace? Certainly not. And in a moment we will be changed on that day. And one day we'll be free, free indeed, Jesus. One day all this struggle will cease, and we will see your glory revealed on that day. He couldn't have picked a more fitting song. Little did he know when he picked it that this song, my version of it, is dedicated solely to him. I will never forget the few precious years we shared, and I will remember with love, respect and friendship. And I look forward to the day, one day, when we all meet in heaven. Goodbye, Stephen. Thank you for being my friend. see you soon, Stephen.